Hi, and welcome to Organizing Life's Daily Demands. My name is Peter Gordon. I'm the president of New York Financial Organizers. We help people pay their bills, deal with their uh, insurance claims, and often act as fiduciary for them. And in general, we do all the non-investment side of personal finance. And that involves dealing with life's daily demands. And the purpose of this podcast is to introduce people to other services like mine, or, as in this case, other businesses that can help businesses that help people organize in life's daily demands. And that's why I'm here talking with Tony Carnesi of Carnesi CFO Consulting. Hi, Tony. How are you doing today?
Good morning, Peter. I'm great. How you doing, man?
I'm really well.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming here. Tony and I have known each other for a number of years. We'll get into that a little bit. But first, like I like to do is try to get a sense of how the people I'm talking to got to where they are now. How did you start in the business world?
Well, I am a recovering CPA, certified public accountant, and my inspiration to give up the certified public accounting world and to go into CFO services was I was on doing financial statements a number of years ago for a client that I'd been to a number of years, and their gross margins were shrinking. This was a distributor in Bronx, New York City, client that I really enjoyed working with, and their margins were shrinking. And I came back from the engagement and I looked at the partner in charge and I said, you always complain that we don't have enough work during the off season. Can I go in there and help them figure out why their margins are shrinking? He looked at me and he was in a very CPA way, Tony, that's not what we do. Well, that was what I wanted to do, because that was the fun part about accounting, is understanding what was going on underneath the numbers. And that was my inspiration at that point in time to say, I am going to start an accounting firm that's going to also do that type of service. And that evolved into doing CFO services and helping businesses gain clarity and make better decisions. And I can go on, but I'm going to stop there. That was the inspiration that got me to where I am today.
Yeah, and actually we met when you were maybe starting that business or had been in that business for a little while.
Actually, I do recall the person who introduced me to the Let's Talk Business Network, and that was back right around that time at my accounting firm. And I met you there shortly thereafter. And then that's when I left that accounting firm and started doing CFO stuff, as well as still doing that CPA stuff until I got right in the head and I gave up the CPA stuff entirely 12 years ago.
Right. I forgot about Let's Talk Business.
Yep.
Which is,
that's where we met.
That was a kind of a business, how would you put it?
Mastermind. It was a mastermind plus networking. We were in a mastermind group together. I remember that. And
it was very helpful to me. I was in a completely different business in a completely different world, and much has changed. And 12 years ago, when you started your business, I was kind of looking for what I was going to do. So I've been doing this for 10 years, and but we do work together. And
yes, we do.
You've been incredibly helpful to my partner and I. And
thank you.
So I want to talk about your, or have you talk about your business philosophy.
Okay.
And how do you go about working with your clients?
Okay. Well, typically, and it started the same way I started with you and your partner. You asked me to help you put a budget together. And when you start looking at the numbers from my perspective, I start asking a lot of questions. Why is this number this? What does this one represent? And looking at the numbers and then talking to a business owner, like I was talking to three partners of a new client I had last week, and they didn't know their numbers at all. And it was, and their business was a decent sized business. And I'm like, how do you keep going doing that? And they want better clarity. And so really that philosophy is clarity, because with good numbers, you can make better decisions. And my philosophy also includes the KISS principle, keep it simple, silly. I've walked into small businesses,
Silly?
Pardon me?
I know it is keep it simple, stupid.
Oh, that's right. You did say I could be a little bit more potty mouthed on this. So yeah, I should have said stupid. Anyway, but some people get sensitive, and I understand that. And that KISS principle is so important because I have worked with clients who start out businesses and they feel like they need all these reports to look at on a regular basis. I walked into an IT services company years ago, and he had a stack of reports like this. This is what I look at every month, Tony. And I'm like, oh, that's nice. So the next month I saw him, so I was only seeing him once a month for a small engagement. He said, did you read all those, Tony? I said, F no. I don't have time to read all this crap. Do you? Why, of course I do, Tony. Turned out that his bookkeeper hadn't paid sales tax in 3 years. Okay. I worked for Citibank for just 1 year. I'm not a corporate guy, so it was not a good fit, but I was there for a year. And we sent a one-page report to upper management. We were the fiscal management and control or something like that. And one page. So I challenge every business when I walk in. What can I reduce to one page that will help you make better decisions on a monthly basis, and that we could have good discussions with you and your management team? And that's where I follow the KISS principle. That is my philosophy.
No, and it's great. It makes sense, especially in today's world. We're bombarded with information and things coming at you left and right. Keeping it simple and having that information on one page, which is great, which is what we do, and which Jacob and I do, and we look at our numbers every week. So that was really interesting when you commented about going into a firm that does a fair amount of business and the partners didn't know what their numbers are, because that keeps us, moving in the right direction. And you've been very instrumental in helping us do that.
Thank you. I just want to turn the credit back to you because you and your partner, Jacob, you have a vision for your business, and that's clear in your minds, and you want it, and you're willing to change, and you're willing to make changes. So right back at you.
Yeah, well, thanks. And so your advice has been really great, and we're growing. I don't think we're growing because of you, but we're learning how to grow efficiently and how to. The next topic I want to get to is get the most from your people, and we were when we started working, we really didn't have other people working for us in a significant way, but we do now. So why don't you talk about that, getting most from your people, because you've been really helpful to us with that.
Okay. Well, one of the keys, especially when you're a smaller business starting out, is getting the right people. And there are leadership books out there, Jim Collins, Good to Great, getting people in the right seats. And that's a whole lot easier said than done, because when you bring in people to your organization, especially when you're smaller, well, in general, you need folks who understand what you're trying to accomplish and buy in. And one of the terms that I've gotten into over the last 2 years is called self-management. If you have to micromanage your people, well, then it's going to take away from what you need to do. So getting the most from them is so important. And how do you engage them? Number one, you need to find somebody who understands your passion and wants to follow it. Okay, before you, I had a client in the jewelry business, and he started with maybe five employees. And he was able to grow and he was my first consulting client. I learned something very valuable. He started out with a handful of employees who were still with him years later because they were bought into the whole thing. And when I walk into a business with a small number of employees, a limited number of employees, and I hear the business owner saying, I'm constantly checking on them to do this and do that. So I asked them, all right, so now it's time to start a two-way conversation with that employee and find out, well, do you really want to be here? Why are you here? One of the first questions I love to ask an employee is, why are you here? And if they don't answer, and here's my inspiration for this comes from The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. Okay, he has a book called The E-Myth Manager. And he said, if you're a man, and it was a beautiful story of the manager in a company, if they're not engaged in achieving the vision of the person who owns that company, if they're not fully engaged, then why are they there? And what engages them? They're fulfilling their vision while working for somebody else, helping them to fulfill their vision. So when you bring on people who are new, well, why are you here? Do you like what you're doing? Do you enjoy what you're doing? Because if you don't enjoy what you're doing, maybe you shouldn't be doing it. And that's where the conversation starts. And then you get into a whole bunch of other stuff. Trust. Do they trust you to open up to you? And it's really based on the relationship and getting to know your people as soon as possible, understanding their strengths and weaknesses and what they're good at is a good first step, and making sure that they're doing something that they want to be doing and they want to be there.
So what strikes me as so interesting is your focus on people, but you're a CFO. And when you think CFO, you think numbers. Oh, he's going to go over the numbers. We're going to review the numbers. But you dig down and you go below the numbers and what drives the numbers. And that's certainly in every business. It's people. And you've been really helpful. And you're always, you're telling us that, hey, if you have somebody good, make sure they're happy. Get to know them. Get to know what's going on with them. And luckily, it's been working for us. It's really been working for us. You mentioned something about priority management. What's priority management?
Well, I am the anti-time management consultant. I don't believe there is such a thing as time management when you have a long list of things to do. And constantly, when I was doing masterminds for business owners and when I go into new clients, they have this long list of what they want to accomplish. And, we talked about that EOS system that you've been privy to. And, they talk about rocks, 90-day rocks. And I've always been a 90-day person. What are your goals for the quarter? But I love sitting with a business owner and looking at that big list and saying, what's most important? What are the priorities? And, I'm going to quote, I'm not a big fan of telling people to read books because so many people love to tell me to read a book. I've mentioned 2 books already. Good to Great by Jim Collins, which is very good. The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. Anything Michael Gerber writes, I think is valuable. And one other book that taught me about priority management, The One Thing by somebody, I think his name is Gary Keller. If you have a whole bunch of things to do, what's most important? Focus on that during the day. Then at the end of the day, if you got your most important things done, then you can breathe at the end of the day and stop working. But if you say, I've got to do this, this, and this, and try to do 5 things and not do them well, then you're left with 4 things the next day that you still have to finish because you didn't get them to completion. Priority is just focusing on what's important and being able to create a list to the side of what's not important, there's bucket lists. I like to call that the fuck it list. It's not important enough for you to get to today. So right. Why work on it?
Well,
it's priority management.
Right. What I do, because I still have a list and I have an app that shows the things that I have to do, but I don't look Absolutely. At that. I cull that down and I take 3 to 5 things that I want to accomplish. When I hit that 5th one, then I'll put more onto my priority list. And that's been incredibly helpful. I know when we first met, you were actually in a working with another fellow in a consultancy, and you did a lot of work talk about the 4-day work week.
Yes.
Why don't you talk about that, the concept, and I think there's a podcast.
Yes, there is. The 4-day work week, I read something about it back in 2018, and it was in the back of my mind. And then one day I said, I think this is something that really resonates with improving a business, because as that CFO, I bring that consulting portion into the business when I'm working with a business. And the 4-day work week really resonated in the sense that, well, that's catchy and it makes sense. And then the 4-day work week, the 4-day program started out in 2020, the global program. We were actually partnered with that program briefly in 2022. And now the 4-day work week is really a metaphor for the flexibility, especially with these times with the pandemic. How do small to medium-sized businesses keep their best people? Well, they've got, they can't afford to pay what JP Morgan Chase will pay you and insist you're in the office 5 days a week and you're going to do it our way. Small to medium-sized business have to offer softer benefits. What are those benefits? Okay. Ask your employees, what kind of a flexible schedule would be helpful to you in your personal life? Well, if you want to have a Friday off, can you get all your work done in 4 days? Oh my God, how do we do that? Well, let's face it, Peter. I was working for a CPA firm many years ago, and I remember the people who used to brag about pulling all-nighters. And they were the ones who were talking all day long, wasting a lot of time. So it's really, you start out being, how do you make your business more efficient? Because then you can offer flexibility if your business is more efficient. Low-hanging fruit is meetings. How often are we in meetings that take way too long? What are some of the tasks? Have you ever taken a look at all the things you do in a business during the day and say, do we really need to do this? Okay. There have been studies, many a study have come out showing that people are anywhere from 20 to 30% unproductive while sitting at their desks. And we're talking about knowledge workers in general. Production's a whole nother discussion, but it's there as well. And well, if people are unproductive, why don't we take some of that unproductive time away and give it back to them and say, you can take the time off. How does that sound? And across the world, especially in Europe, the United States is behind on the 4-day work week.
Oh,
there
yeah.
have been a lot of companies adopting it and saying that it's actually working. Profits are staying the same. Productivity is staying the same. In fact, increasing. I'm sure there are stories where it's not working, but there's a lot of good publicity out there showing that it is working if you make the effort.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. That's wonderful. So what type of companies do you like to work with?
I love to work with companies, with business owners who are hungry and have a vision, number one. Okay. Number two, I like to work with businesses who've been in business less than 10 years or less, because typically those businesses are not where they want to be and they want to reach bigger goals. When I met you with Jacob, you guys hadn't been in business all that long. So, you guys have a vision, you have goals, and you bought in. As far as types of industries, I work with a lot of professional services, but I love working with companies with warehouses. Okay?
Really?
Nothing excites me more than walking around looking at inventory and asking, when was the last time you counted this stuff? So that includes light manufacturing, distributors. And then as far as, in the modern world, digital and technology companies are also at the forefront of who I want to work with. Those are those younger businesses with hungry business owners and folks who are looking to build something extraordinary.
That's great. And how do people get in touch with you?
Well, they can visit the website, www.carnesiconsulting.com. They can reach me on LinkedIn, Tony Carnesi. And that website, just so everybody knows, I'm in the middle of a rebrand, but business is going really well, so I haven't had a chance to update that website this year. And
that information will be, in the podcast text as well as in the video text on YouTube. So, people will see that right up front. And
okay.
Anyway, I want to thank you. Thank you for this time. It was great, very enlightening. And just to tell you again, Jacob, I love working with you, and looking forward to talking to you next week and going over our year-end numbers, or close to year-end numbers.
Okay, and I'm looking forward to it too. I enjoy working with you and Jacob.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, our pleasure. With that, I'm going to sign off from Organizing Life's Daily Demands, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Great.